Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is No B.S. Sports. Your usual crew, Mike, Damon, Chayton, and myself, Chewy. And today we're going to talk about fantasy. This is way too early predictions, and we're going to talk about some of our favorite players or some of our players that we think are bad fits. And first, we're going to start out with our fantasy favorites, and Mike's going to take that away.
For fantasy favorite, this is a guy that I've been high on for a little bit now. Going into last season, I was super high on him. And it's Nick Chubb. He's currently being drafted at the 15. His ADP for fantasy football, player profile is 15.86. So that's middle of the second round. Although he's not going to be as heavy in the passing work, he had over 20 carries inside the 5-yard line last year. I will say mostly because he was just so bad at getting into the end zone from the 5-yard line. So they just kept having to feed him the ball. But that does show that's who they want to run the ball with. And even with Kareem Hunt, the last 8 weeks, if you pace it out, he's still well over 1,000 yards. He still has about eight touchdowns, and he still caught around 30 balls if you pace out the last 8 games of the season. So I'm not really concerned about Kareem Hunt in the rushing game, more in the passing game. But this guy can go off in any week for 150, 200 yards. This guy's a beast. He's got the explosiveness and the power that you look for in a workhorse running back. And he had over 250 carries last year. And one thing that's really slept on about him is he's actually super elusive. He's good at breaking tackles. He had only 2 games with less than 5 evaded tackles last year. And I just think he's slipping in the second round because of his pass catching work in Kareem Hunt. But I don't think that's a big worry for me. I mean, if he's there in the middle of the second round, a workhorse back, you can't find that in the second round, especially middle of the second round. I think that's a steal of a pick. I think he's going to go off 1,300 yards, eight touchdowns, catch 20, 30 balls. And the offense is so much improved with Austin Hooper and then Jack Conklin, and then they drafted another tackle out of Alabama, which I just think that's just really going to secure that offensive line and make it that much better and easier for him to run the ball.
Mike, quick question real quick. What do you think with Kareem Hunt still in the backfield? How much is that going to affect Chubb? Because it'll be Hunt's, second year in the offense. He only came halfway through the season. He's going to take away from Chubb?
Obviously, I mean, it's natural. I mean, Kareem Hunt's no scrub. He's a good player. I mean, his rookie year, he won the rushing title. He had like 1,300 yards or something like that. So I don't think he's a scrub or anything. But I think they showed last year in the back half of the season, like I'm talking the back half of when he came. So let's say the last 4 games where he was integrated in the offense, he still was predominantly just the pass catcher. And as I said, like once Kareem Hunt came back the last 8 games, he still would have paced out for over 1,000 yards and 7 or 8 touchdowns.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted hear what you thought about that.
Yeah, I think he'll take some of the work. I mean, it as I said, Kareem Hunt's a good running back, but I just think Nick Chubb is so dominant.
I think that flows well, honestly, into my fantasy favorite. He's also got a opportunity, a guy behind him that's pretty good, no Jay Howard. But I think Gronk is going to be my fantasy star. I don't think Tom calls him to come out of retirement. He's not going to get him a bunch of balls in Tampa. But I think what makes Gronk one of the most dynamic tight ends and dominant tight ends is you can put him on the field for all 3 downs. He blocks better than any tight end ever, I would probably say, and can catch balls over pretty much anybody. Not many people can guard him. I know we haven't seen him in 2 years, he took last season off to go do WWE and stuff, but I think with Tom Brady going down to Tampa, and I think the two guys on the outside with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, that's going to open up the middle for Gronk. I feel like, how are you going to guard all three of them? Someone's got to be open. You can't guard Gronk anyway, so you may as well take your chances guarding the guys on the outside. So I think Gronk's going to have a better season than what he's being predicted. I just saw that Matthew Berry released his top 100, and Gronk's like the 8th best tight end. I don't think that he needs to be projected up like George Kittle type levels. I think George Kittle is an outstanding tight end. But I think 8th's a little bit disrespectful to probably the best tight end that at least our generation and probably of all time. I think 8th's a little bit disrespectful. So I think Gronk's going to have a lot of people to prove wrong about his status. I think he's going to be better than obviously projected. And I think that him coming back from that year off gave him enough time to reset, get his body right. I know he was dealing with some injuries his last year at the Patriots. So I think he's going to come back, and this is going to be the best Gronk we're going to see since, prime Gronk like 3 or 4 years ago. So I think he's going to be my favorite for the year on that dynamic offense down in Tampa.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he's going to be definitely someone that they're going to have to focus on, and with, all their weapons, even their running back situation, he's no scrub either. So I think that's going to be another person they got to worry about, coming out of the backfield. And as you said, Gronk, I mean, he can't be guarded anyways. So who are you going to put on him? Are you going to take a safety from over top of one of those other two guys, or are you going to try to put a linebacker on him? They're not going to be able to keep up. We don't know.
Well, even especially in the first few weeks too, without having these optional OTAs and all this online practice, Brady and Gronk's already been hooking up for the past 8 years or whatever, how long his career is. So those first few weeks he's going to have a trusted hand that he's going to go to. Obviously, after that spike, it'll even out for the rest of the team. But off rip, Gronk's going to be a highly sought after player, and I bet the guys in our league, shout out Denny's, going to try and trade for him, and I'll be lucky to take your money, Denny.
Denny will draft him in the first round, but I was about to say the same thing, Chayton. I was about to bring up the same point, so I agree with what you said.
Yeah, so I'm going to take it back to the Browns, and for my fantasy favorite, I'm taking Odell Beckham Jr. I've checked a couple different rankings, and he's at a wide receiver 11 right now, I believe. His 2019 season, 74 receptions, just over 1,000 yards. Disappointing. He only had 2 games over 100 yards. You can't put it all on him because, like Mike mentioned, the offensive line was awful. They let up 99 quarterback pressures across those against the starting offensive line. 38 of them were just from one tackle.
Wow.
So that just played into the real life horror film that was the Cleveland Browns offense. But adding, like you said, adding Jack Conklin, adding Jedrick Willis Jr., I believe that'll be the reigniting of that offense, I believe. But a high point with him was the fact that he had a minimum of 5 targets every game. Even with having him, Jarvis Landry, he was still a guy that was like, you knew he may not have got the ball to him, but he was there. You knew he was going to try to get the ball. He had 133 total targets and only 4 drops in the whole season. So although they added Austin Hooper to the offense, I believe that he will remain the top target and he will emerge. I think he'll eclipse 1,200 yards, just under 10 touchdowns.
Yeah, Damon, I agree with that. Staying with the same position for my fantasy favorite, I'm going to go with Davante Adams. This past season, he was just under 1,000 yards. He missed 4 games due to injury. He was on my fantasy team. He was a good player this year. Yeah, thanks for Mike for that trade. Helped me out getting the postseason last year. But Davante Adams right now, he's ranked number 3 receiver, 7 overall for PPR leagues. Davante Adams is just a phenomenal receiver. I think he's going to hit 100 catches this year, 1,200 yards. And the 3 years leading up to last year, he's hit double-digit touchdowns. I think he'll get back to double-digit touchdowns. He's kind of out of the groove. You're injured a little bit. New offense. I think second year under Matt LaFleur, Rodgers. I think he's going to have a chip on his shoulder because he drafted Jordan Love. I think him and Davante are going to, hook back up, and, he's going to hit double-digit touchdowns again, which he's done 3 years in a row before this year. I think he'll be back on track because, he's up there with one of the best receivers in the league. We're going to shift gears to our potential breakout studs this year. Mike, do you want to get started with that?
Yeah, so my breakout would be Terry McLaurin for the Washington Redskins. My biggest reason on why I think Terry is going to break out this year is in his rookie year with a rotating quarterback, the situation was horrible for him. He still managed to have 61 – oh, my apologies. He had – where'd it go? 1 second. I had it right here. He had 58 receptions, 919 yards, and 7 touchdowns, and that's with missing 2 games. So if you pace that out, that would be around 65 receptions. That put him a little bit over 100 yards and 8 touchdowns. And for a rookie with a rotating quarterback situation, their offense was pretty poor. It's probably one of the worst in the NFL. I think that he can only go up from here. He's a guy that can run the route tree, but also take it to the house on a slant or a screen. He ran a 4.35 at the combine. So he's one of the faster guys in the NFL, and he's a beast. He went up against some of the top corners last year, and had some pretty decent games. For example, like Byron Jones, he got 5 receptions, 62 yards, and a touchdown. Gilmore, he was hurt against, but he caught 3 receptions for 51 yards. He had Tre'Davious White, 4 receptions, 39 yards. Darius Slay, 5 receptions, 72 yards. He's a good player. And I also think with that, I think Dwayne Haskins takes the next step. They were also teammates in college, which helps a lot. Obviously, they've been playing with each other for 4 years now. So I feel like he's going to take the next step. He is going into the season knowing he's the starting quarterback this year. And with the new offensive coordinator, I feel like that's definitely going to help them in the long run. I just think Terry is just such a skilled player that no one's going to bring him down, especially the Redskins don't think that he or they believe that he can take on the alpha dog role because they didn't draft a receiver until the 4th round this year and didn't sign anybody relevant.
A guy that better take on that alpha dog role this year is my breakout star, and I'm looking at Baker Mayfield on the Browns. With the addition, like we said, of Conklin and things, I think the things that weren't his fault should go down. His sacks numbers were ridiculous last year. It's not really his fault. Maybe he held the ball too long, but when your offensive line's bad, your offensive line's bad. But the things that were his fault, you put the ball on the ground 6 times, you turn it over, you throw 21 picks. You got to fix that. And with his offense now, with Odell, Chubb, Kareem, Jarvis, there should be no reason that he is unsuccessful unless it's Baker. And so I'm putting confidence in him. I'm not going to draft him in fantasy personally. I like my quarterback to be a consistent guy. My track record is Tony Romo, Phillip Rivers, the guys that are going to put up 15 a week. I don't like the boomer bust guys at my quarterback position. I'll take my chances elsewhere, but there's no reason that he shouldn't be a good quarterback. They got him listed right now at like the 13th best quarterback or so. but he has one of the the easier strength of schedule in the NFL. I think they're like the fourth easiest strength of schedule or something right now. Obviously, that's going to change when teams start showing up and we start getting games going. But I think Baker's got to figure it out, and I think that he has the opportunity to be the biggest breakout star in the NFL, most improved, whatever you want to say. But again, I've said it 3 podcasts ago. I say it every week. Anything that Baker does is going to be on Baker, not the offensive coordinator, not his offense. You could call any play, and someone should make a play on that team, especially with the offensive line being addressed. You have a powerhouse offense now, so if it's awful, it's 100% on Baker, unless Odell goes out there with, like, broken hands or something and tries to play football. Like, it's all on him.
Yeah, I'm going to transition over to back to rushing the ball. I'm going to go with Miles Sanders from the Philadelphia Eagles. This season they got him for running back 12. Last year he rushed for 818 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then with that added 50 receptions for 509 yards and 3 touchdowns. And with that, he was only playing 53% of snaps and was only taking 48% of the carries and targets from all the Philly running backs, because we know they have 11 of them there. Now, one thing that isn't the greatest is that they're 22nd in the strongest, so they're on the higher end of strength against running backs. But I believe that he really ended the season on a strong note, because on the after the bye week in those last 7 weeks, that's where he accumulated 482 of his 509 yards and 200 of his 500 yards receiving. So I think he was on a hot streak there. So I believe that with a full season at the helm, I think he gathers up about just under 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. But I do think his receiving numbers will go down, because Boston Scott showed that he can be a valuable pass catcher there. So I do think that his numbers will go down there.
Yeah, I agree with that, Damon. We were talking about this before the show, that we all were like, like Miles Sanders. We're saying like that's a hit, like an easy hit, that he's going to be good this year. I'm going to go with a combo for my potential breakout, and that's Drew Lock with Courtland Sutton this year. Courtland Sutton went off last year. He had 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. With a bad quarterback in Joe Flacco, he wasn't very good last year. And Sutton proved that he can be a number 1. I think with Jerry Jeudy, it might hurt a little bit in receptions, but I think he's going to break out, because Jeudy and Noah Fant, like, they're going to need – you have to cover them, because those guys aren't scrubs. And I think Sutton's ability to get the jump ball, and, I've been listening to stuff, him and Tyrann Mathieu. There's a play where it was in the snow, and Sutton got the ball knocked out by Mathieu, and they're still, like, not like beefing about it, but Sutton's like, yeah, that play's been on my mind. I'm ready for this season. So I like Sutton, and I think Drew Lock is an easy pick, because that offense is loaded with Phillip Lindsay, Rolls-Royce Freeman, Melvin Gordon, Fant, Courtland Sutton, Jeudy. I can keep going.
Hamler,
Deshaun Hamilton. I mean, they're loaded. Drew Lock is set up, I think, very easily to explode this year. And I don't think Denver makes the playoffs, but I think they're 8-8, 9-7, and they're gonna give a lot of teams a lot of trouble, because just all their weapons. But we're gonna switch to some of our bad fits, and I know we're gonna stick with the Denver Broncos. So, Mike, you want to get us started with some bad fits?
My bad fit is Melvin Gordon. I think the scheme fit is actually – I think it's a good scheme fit. They run the zone scheme, which the Chargers did too, which I think that fits Melvin Gordon perfectly, because he can't read a hole. So if one just opens up, he might find it. But my issue with the situation is Phillip Lindsay is a proven guy that he shows up and he can play. He's not the best pass catcher, not the best pass blocker, but he's a great runner. And for a zone scheme, that's perfect. And then you got Royce Freeman, who he's pretty underrated in my opinion. He doesn't really get the respect that he should. They don't use him as much as they should because they have Phillip Lindsay, which I think Phillip Lindsay's better than Royce Freeman. But Royce Freeman, he showed last year with the touches, he's a pretty decent running back. And then you throw in Melvin Gordon in the mix. How's the splits going to, go along? Because they're all pretty similar in skill set. They all can run the ball. They all can catch the ball. The main thing is Melvin Gordon's more of a household name than the other two, but he's also older. He's got some more tread on his tires, and he's shown that he does get injured pretty often. So I'm not sure if I like the team that he went to because they're just so loaded at running back, and just as you were just talking about on offense. I mean, they have so many weapons that is he going to get the touches that he needs? He's not going to be able to produce in that offense because there's just so much going on.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay in the backfield and I'm gonna talk about one of the. It wouldn't be a Bums podcast if I didn't talk about the Lions. I think that DAndre Swift. I don't know how good of a fit he's going to be on the Lions. I didn't think, as we talked in our post-draft podcast, I didn't think he was the best running back in the draft. I definitely thought Jonathan Taylor was better than him, and I think that'll show out later in their careers. I just don't know how he's going to fit. That Lions team, they're better. They filled holes, but they're still going to have – Matt Stafford's still going to throw the ball down the field 30, 40 times a game. I just don't know how him coming out of the backfield catching passes is going to look. I know he's a rookie. We're not expecting a ton of him. He's an early second-round pick. He doesn't have Joe Burrow-type expectations, but I just don't know how he's going to fit, and especially with Kerryon Johnson coming back. This is going to be the first year in a couple years that he's going to be coming back. He has a longer time to recover. I know he doesn't have the trainers in the room that he can go see every day, but I think that he is going to come back 100% healthy, and I think he's going to want his workhorse snaps that he not really deserves, but he's been the one back for a few years, just hasn't had a chance to prove it. I just don't know where DAndre Swift's fit is going to be. I think that he will be good once he finds his home in the Lions or gets traded or whatever. He's going to be a great NFL running back. There's no question about it. And he was a workhorse at Georgia. He's going to continue to be a workhorse. But on the Lions, I just don't know. On a team that I think is still bad, that's going to have Matt Stafford throw for 100,000 yards like he usually does. I just don't know what he's going to do, and that's why I said I don't think he's a good fit. It's not that he's a bad player. I'm not saying that at all, but I just don't know how he's going to fit.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. I think he's a good player, but I don't think he's supposed to be on the Lions. I don't think it's meant to be.
No.
Yeah, so I'm gonna bring it back to the Denver backfield, but I'm gonna say the opposite. I'm going to say that the bad fit would be Phillip Lindsay. I do agree with you that the scheme does fit in Gordon's favor, and also that Lindsay is no one to just look past. 2,000-yard seasons, 14 touchdowns. He's definitely nobody to mess around with, but I don't think that the coach makes this move and gets Gordon to throw him in a committee or for him not to be the feature back there. I believe that Melvin Gordon can I hate to say this, but Phillip Lindsay is undersized, and I think Melvin Gordon can catch just as well, if not better, and can have more of a presence in the red zone. And if not, then Freeman can step up in those positions. But I think Melvin Gordon will be the workhorse of this, the majority carrier of this backfield, with Lindsay being there when he needs out. And I think Lindsay goes 625, rushing, 4 touchdowns, 30 receptions, 225.
Yeah, Damon, I agree with that. I've had Phillip Lindsay last 2 years, great fantasy player, but you don't pay Melvin Gordon, I think $10 million or whatever they paid him to come in to not feed him the rock. I'm going to stick in the backfield, but it's not going to be running back. It's going to be quarterback. It's going to be the man with an army, Phillip Rivers, because he has like 9 or 10 kids or 11. Who knows? He might be able to fill out a football team. But Phillip Rivers has been a fairly consistent fantasy QB over the years. You can rely on him, getting you touchdowns, throwing yards, but also interceptions. I think it's a bad fit in Indianapolis because I like Jacoby Brissett, and I think letting him start would have been the best foot forward for Indianapolis, at least for the 3-year extension they gave him, just to see if he'll work out. But you throw an aged Phillip Rivers in, who had a bad year last year with great weapons, and his weapons aren't better. Indianapolis weapons aren't better. The offensive line's better. The run game's going to be good, but you got Ty. He's going to be good because it's Ty as long as he's healthy. But outside of that, I mean, Zach Pascal showed some flashes, but he's not more than a number 3 receiver. They lost Eric Ebron, who surprisingly played well in Indianapolis compared to his years in Detroit. And I just think Phillip Rivers is going to go down. And I think eventually by week 9 or 10, after he has his 4 pick games, they're going to have to give Brissett the nod back in for starter.
Yeah, I agree with that. And they did draft that rookie Imms, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Which I think he's good, but I don't think he's going to be the difference maker that, like, for example, Mike Williams or Keenan Allen was. And I don't think they have that threat out of the backfield. I mean, I like Nyheim Hines, but he's not Austin Eckler.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, let's wrap up with our bad fits to players trending down. Mike, you want to get started with players trending down this year that had good years last year?
Yeah, so I know a lot of people won't agree with me, but just hear me out. I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to take a step down. His usual self, he's asking for a 30% target share roughly, somewhere in there, which is one of the higher percentages in the NFL. And I do not see that happening at all. First reason why is there's no training camp. How is someone supposed to get in rhythm with their quarterback, which is the main thing in especially a receiver going to a new team and a skilled receiver as he is, if there's no training camp. Obviously this is going to be different a little bit if there is training camp. But as of right now, he's trending down for me. I still think he'll be top 6 wide receiver fantasy wise. But I don't think he'll be his usual number 1, number 2, number 3 range of outcomes. Another reason would be in this offense, Kyler Murray likes to spread the ball. So we had Larry Fitzgerald, who had 109 targets. Christian Kirk had 107 targets. David Johnson had 47. Bird had 46. Cooper had 33. Charles Clay had 24. Keyshawn Johnson had 42. Kenyon Drake, who only played 8 games, had 35. It just shows that Kyler Murray is not interested in force-feeding anybody. Not that any of these guys are as good as DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not saying that at all. But they were the featured receivers, or Christian Kirk was supposed to be the featured receiver in the offense. And he only ended up with 68 receptions. He did miss 3 games, but that just shows that he's not interested in force feeding. Lastly, Deshaun Watson was put into that situation when he was drafted to Houston. That was his only weapon, realistically. So he was forced to throw the ball to DeAndre Hopkins, and that's all Deshaun Watson knew. Will Fuller was good for him, but he was never around. So as I said, it was just DeAndre Hopkins. I just don't think in this offense that Kyler Murray is going to give them a 30% target share for DeAndre Hopkins. I think he will score a lot of touchdowns though, because of their poor efficiency in the red zone. But anything like that, it's not going to happen.
I think I'm gonna keep mine short. It's kind of obvious. If you at least followed the NFL last year, Christian McCaffrey was a god among boys last year, ripping off crazy fantasy numbers. Shout out whoever let him fall to me in fantasy drafts. I think that was Denny.
Hey, man, we're not going to talk about that. All right.
Oh, that was Damon. Oh, sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, Denny took Todd Gurley.
Oh, so they both let him follow me. Clutch. Thanks, boys. At the third overall, I got the best player to ever walk on a fantasy field. And I think that he will still be a top 1, 2, 3 running back. I think Zeke's got a chance. I think Saquon can finally take that step forward to be the number one guy in the NFL. But I think McCaffrey is going to come back down to earth this year. I think he's going to be still a man among boys, but I think he will take a slight step back from his reign over the NFL, and I think that Zeke, Saquon, somebody will take a step forward this year. So it's not a huge wow factor, but it is something that's going to take a step back.
Yeah, I'm gonna transition and talk about somebody who was very dominant on the ground, and I was talking about Aaron Jones. Last season, he had 236 carries, 1,000 yards, 16 rushing touchdowns. Added to that, got 3 more receiving touchdowns. I know Chewy loves him some Aaron Jones.
Love Aaron
but
Jones.
Him and Alvin Kamara are the only 2 running backs that have finished top 30 in running backs over the past 10 years with less than 300 touches. So he's been somebody that's been super efficient in fantasy. And then on top of that, you also have Jamal Williams, who adds 700 yards, 6 total touchdowns. Now, the problem with that for this upcoming season is the drafting of A.J. Dillon, 6 foot, 250 pounds, Boston College. He's a bulldozer. Not much of a pass catcher, but senior season goes 318 carries, 1,600 yards, 5 yards a carry, 14 touchdowns. He's a big disciplined runner. He had the finesse to be an efficient one-cut back in the league and the power to create more yards after contact. Now, with that being said, I think that will kind of move into the role of what Aaron Jones is doing because I think a high percentage of his touchdowns came within 10 yards. And Jones is big, but he's also only 5'9". I could see over the season going along, I believe Dillon will take over the spot of goal line back. If training camp is a big deal. If he gets in there and they get some moves, I think he can get some early targets in there. But with that, I do believe that Aaron Jones's receptions will go up if he takes less on the ground. So I do think his numbers will go down. I think he goes under 1,000 yards. I still think he gets 10 touchdowns because he's still the starter. But I do believe receptions will go up to over 50, and he gets the majority of his yards through the air.
I would like to debate that with you on a different day, but today I'm going to keep on track, and I'm ripping the mustache for a reason for one of my favorite players in the league right now, Gardner Minshew. And my player turning down is one of his targets, DJ Chark. He kind of exploded on the scene. I think he got a late nod to the Pro Bowl when somebody backed out this year. He had a great year, but towards the end of the season, his numbers really went down. I think some of that had to do with Nick Foles coming back and then, Foles and Minshew switching in the middle of games. You don't know who's starting each week. It kind of messed up the chemistry. But I just don't – I think they had issues with the offensive line that they didn't address this year because they didn't really have a very good offensive line. Some of Minshew's best plays is him avoiding 3 defensive linemen and making a nice throw. And with them drafting Colin Johnson and then Chenault, those 2 are going to take targets away. And, I think Leonard Fournette, he's not a great catcher. He's not known for that, but he can catch the ball. And I think Minshew is going to progress. And when a quarterback progresses, they don't take as many risks, so they hit their check down a little bit more. So I just think DJ Chark is just not going to have the year he had. I think he still maybe hits 65 catches, 900 yards, but I don't think he hits 1,000. I think he maybe gets 5 touchdowns this year. I don't know. I like Minshew, but I just don't think they have enough pieces to protect him, and I don't think he's going to really flourish in the upcoming season. But, so that's our fantasy segment for today, and we thank you for listening to us. Hit subscribe. We're going to bring more fantasy content to you. That's going to be one of our hot topics, especially when the season gets closer. We're big fantasy guys, and we'll tell you about our fantasy league, and we'll give you more fantasy as the months come on. Thank you guys for listening. Hit subscribe.
Let us know what you think and what you want us to hear. Our DMs are open and the comments are open. Let us know. Give us feedback. We're still learning and growing as we go on. But thank you guys.